I'm Steve Jenkins, and welcome to the craft of oil painting. Today we're going to do a wash-in. Now, what is a wash-in? It's an underpainting or a preliminary painting done in light and dark, or values, in order to establish the feeling of light and space. Get this right, and you're a long way towards a successful painting. Get it wrong, and you're going to have problems. Hue, the actual color of things, and chroma, the brilliance and grayness of things, we'll deal with later. So let's get started. This is my demonstration for today, a humble cup. I start all my students with this simple motif and gradually increase the difficulty as time passes. These are the materials that I'm going to be using today to do the wash-in. Burnt umber, some linseed oil, cheesecloth, a palette knife, a small brush, and some paper towels. So the first thing I want to do today is to take the linseed oil, put a little bit of that out with some burnt umber. I've already got that out here. Mix that up. Now I don't want to make it too thin and I don't want it too thick. That's the reason I'm using linseed oil. It's really the only time that I generally add anything to the paint, and that's because I'm doing a wash. It's the same thing that if you were to do a watercolor, you would add more water to it. The linseed oil being the oil medium. So I want to mix that up real good. Right consistency as the brush strokes just begin to disappear. So now I've painted the mixture onto the canvas, and now I'm going to take my palette knife and I'm going to scratch in the cup. Just go ahead and draw that with a knife. A little bit of attention to composition, not a whole lot at this stage of the game though. We're just really after the feeling of light and space, getting our values right. So once I have that in, I'll take my cheesecloth and start to wipe it out. In other words, work from dark to light. And I'll just do a circular motion very lightly. I want to take off some of the material at the back. It is a dark background with a light cup. But I don't want it as dark as what the raw umber, burnt umber is when it comes from the tube. It's really the second value, and our background is not quite that dark. Just get that off of there. Once I do that, I'll drop down to the foreground and take off some of that material. And as soon as I start to do that, then I start to get the feeling of light and space, because I'm addressing the planes. In other words, this top plane, as I refer to it, is going to catch more light because the light is overhead in our situation here. And it's important that you have one light source actually. That way you won't get confused with light coming in at different angles. So once I have that, then I'll go back and I'll kind of like go over my lines. And you get really fine with this cheesecloth. Sometimes if you get the material, too much oil in it, it'll be a little touchy. Other times it'll be too stiff if you don't get enough oil in it. That's why it's important to practice getting the mixture kind of right. So then I'll start wiping the cup out, and I'll start on the part that's closest to me, and I'll just follow the contour of the cup at this stage of the game. Start to remove material. I don't want to bring anything to completion by itself. I want to have the whole painting kind of come together at one time. So then I'll go back and I'll take some of the material out of the inside. There would be more light over there. Kind of get a little bit of light on top of the handle. I know it's going to be there. And maybe, dress up the corner a little bit. Just keep removing material generally, bringing it up from dark to light, kind of, in a way, the old Rembrandt way of doing it. Dark background. And if I make a mistake, I can come back, like here, cup's getting a little bit too fat, so I can come back with my brush mixture and kind of cut the cup down so, you know, I can draw this way. That going. Now I might move the background up a little bit too, because I don't want the cup to appear that it's sitting in front of this backdrop, not sitting in it or on it. So just keep removing material, getting a little bit more and paying attention to the part of the cup that's the closest to me. And I'm also thinking about edges too, but not a whole lot at this stage of the game. When I put the final color on it, once this dries, and it'll take 24 hours for this linseed oil mixture to set up, then I'll start thinking about edges more. So, kind of just another error. It's not an exact science. This is art. So, you know, kind of have to go with the flow, you know. But you can achieve a feeling of light and space this way, and only in values. I'm not using color, I'm just using value, I'm just using dark and light. And that's why I'm using burnt umber in this case. I could use raw umber. So the actual color of the object doesn't begin to get in. I don't have to start to think about that right now. Just trying to establish the thing in values. And if I get those right, and I get that feeling of light and space, that's going to go a long way towards making a successful painting. So you can begin to see it sit there. And maybe a little bit more down here just to change the value, bring it up just a little bit, that feeling. And I'm using this as a step in a final process. I've seen people do this to the nines, so to speak, and you certainly can. And this becomes an end in itself. But for me, I use this as a step towards the final painting, which is, so this is going to serve as the underpainting, or kind of like the blueprint for the values. So there you have it. On the road to a successful oil painting. Hope you enjoyed this.